Hey everybody, welcome to Quest for Peace. I'm Iyaz Akhtar. You can see that in the upper third. Like we don't, it's not a lower third, but if I want a lower third, I can just hit I think this button because I'm also switching the show. So if you're watching the video version, you're like, dude, why are we seeing you when your guest is talking? It's because I forgot what number to push. So I apologize about that in advance. Anyways, you have never seen the show before. Or if you know, nothing about this show, this is about me trying to figure out how to be calm and peaceful and not super crazy intense like I normally am or have been in the past. And it's not just about like me just saying, hey, let me tell you some crazy stories. I was super intense, so I decided to quit my job. But we'll talk a little bit about quitting jobs actually in this episode. It's actually about trying to figure out what would help anybody who is in my kind of situation where you're like, what exactly do people do to be happy? What is that like? And there was a point in my life where I was just trying to figure out what is it I want? Because a lot of folks like, you get married, you have a kid, you get moved to the suburbs, you watch football on Sundays, and you drink a lot of beer, and you have a lawn. This is what your life is like. And I grew up thinking that's a good idea, and I found out that's not what I wanted to do. I lived in upstate New York. I've lived in lots of different areas that didn't exactly appeal to me, but that was the American dream that was like plastered into my head for years. So it took me a while to figure certain things out because I also was rejecting it as I was being told it. So for the past bunch of years, I've been trying to figure out how to be happy. And I'm a lot better at it now. So if you're watching this show and you're like, I'm not happy, well, then maybe you can take solace in the fact that it takes work to be happy. Or if you're happy and you're like, I want to watch somebody who's suffered, you're a jerk. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, so today we're going to do an interview with a friend of mine. You might know him from Podcasts Without Pretense. He is usually he's the funniest guy in the last segment of the show. His name is Eric Sandine. Eric, how's it going?
Hey, good. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good today. Now, you were supposed to be on in a previous bunch of episodes, but you kind of died for some reason. Are you feeling
I
better?
yeah, I flew back from San Francisco, and I'm kind of one of those people. I never get sick, so like when I get sick, it's just horrible. It's like I flew back from San Francisco, and the next day was just like I had the worst cold I've ever had.
So, if people don't know who you are, what you do, could you tell them who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So I'm Eric Sandine. So now I work for a company called Cambly in San Francisco. I do a lot of their support and problem fixing, talking to customers, talking to our tutors, writing documentation. I've kind of done a lot of different things from, you know, talking to customers and support and sales to like code and whatever. Um, and there's a little bit of a technology hobby in there too. So
What is your degree in, by the way? I don't know if I even know that.
my degree is in psychology.
Your degree is in psychology, and
Yep.
I guess if you talk to customers, you kind of need that. But um,
Mm.
okay, so you have done a lot of job hopping like me. If you look at my resume, if you'll go to my LinkedIn right now, you'll see that the longest I've ever kept a job, and I'm sure this has cost me a lot of other jobs, was approximately 3 years. And that was the longest I've held a job. I'll be 36 this year, so I'm going to be pretty old. So you'd think I would have a career going, but I kind of do now. I think I've found a nice place to be. So I find that very valuable in my happiness. Eric, can you talk about your job or your career experience and why would you change jobs as so often as you do? Spoiler, just spoil that right there.
I don't think I've changed. I guess I've changed pretty often. Probably the max has been the job I had in college when I worked for the Forest Service. So yeah, it was probably the longest. I think part of the job hopping is like I tend to work for small companies and like startups and things. So that's kind of inherent in there, right? When you're working for a startup or something like that, you never know what's coming. So sometimes, you're not really quitting. You're just like, well, kind of need to find another job now. But yeah, I don't know. I guess the job hopping is a lot of happiness when it comes down to it. Finding something that's kind of fun, but that's also why I like working for small teams and startups. Is I like having a really small team where things are like moving fast and interesting, and there's new problems to solve constantly. And that's why like when I was working for the Forest Service when I was in college. You know, I just worked in an office, and it was a standard cubicle office job, and that's initially when I decided I could never work that job. Like it was, you know, it was fine, it paid well, but I was bored. You know, like sitting for 8 hours a day just doing 50% of the time nothing. It's just monotonous and things like that, and that's why, yeah, I could never work like a government job again. Um,
So, is any fear in changing jobs? Because I mean, I would think the Forest Service would be very steady, good benefits. Pretty much like you're saying, half the day you're not doing anything. A lot of people find that. At least I've been told that people enjoy that, and I'm not one of those people. I need to
yeah,
be utilized every single second I'm there. Do you have any fear when it comes to going from one company to the other, and maybe even when you're going to startups, considering, as you mentioned, the nature of them, not exactly steady?
yeah. And I mean, I guess that fear is super interesting to me, right? Is because there's something new to do. There's a new problem to solve. That's awesome. But you know, there's always fear. So my most recent job switch, you know, I've worked remote for like a year and 9 months, right? In this office, the one you see, um, and now I'm going from living in Albuquerque working remotely to moving to San Francisco and working in an office. So that's actually like a huge jump. You know, not only is it like a city jump, but it's also moving from, you know, being in my house every day to, you know, commuting to an office, which I actually did last week. But yeah, there's always a lot of fear, you know, especially meeting a new team of people that you don't know. You know, you show up for the first day of work and you expect that you're working, but you don't really know exactly what you're doing or who you're supposed to interact with or how things work, you know? So like that's what I fear the most is figuring out like who is everybody? How do they work? Like what kind of jokes can I make to this guy that won't offend him? Like where can we find some sort of, you know, weird or common ground between how to interact with each other. Like that's really like my big fear. Honestly, like the moving and going into an office, that's the easy part. You know,
Okay, so could you explain why it's an easy part for you? Because I would think for a lot of people that would kind of scare them a little bit more than the eventual HR concerns, because that is an issue. But yeah, do you have any inclination to why that would be the case for you? Because it seems like that would be, I don't want to say abnormal, but it seems like that would be a problem a lot of
yeah.
people would have.
I mean, I think for me um, the moving part of it and all of that is, I mean, of course, it's like you know scary as hell, moving a couple thousand miles and finding a place to live and all of that. But that stuff to me is actually kind of exciting. You know, like just as exciting as starting a new job, things like that. It's scary as hell. But for me, the directly interacting with a new team and figuring out how everything works is is like a little bit more nerve wracking for me, I guess, just because you know moving from you know a team of six people who you know everybody and you've been talking to them daily for a year and a half, and then yeah now there's this new group of people who I don't even know. I don't know any of their backgrounds, and I have to now interact with them daily as well. So you know I feel like that learning curve is steeper for me. Like figuring out who those people are and how to interact with them is steeper for me than like just being like, oh, now I live here, I get on the train here, and I go to the office there. Like that's all mechanical, you know. At least the way it works in my brain, I guess.
That's a very interesting way to put it. It's like, okay, well, if I go to this one location to the next, there's only so many ways this can work. It's like I get from A to B.
Right.
There's only like three options. I have to pick one instead of it being like, I don't know anywhere. I don't know anything. I don't know anything about this place. I have not lived here. I don't know what part of towns are bad. Although San Francisco, pretty well known, stay out of the Mission District. Actually,
Yeah.
not, Mission's not so bad. It's the Tenderloin. Stay the hell out of there, unless you really want to be harassed. Unless
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you find it to be a problem to solve. I have no idea
Right.
when it comes to that that idea. So, what makes you so driven to keep doing this? Because it's not steady. You
No.
obviously you have
Well,
what's your end goal? What are you trying to get at? And do you think achieving it will make you happy? Because I've got some stuff to talk about with that.
sure. I mean, my end goal for a lot of this stuff is you know, so the reason it makes me happy is because I really like working with small teams and I really like being able to do multiple different jobs. you know. And the thing that startups or small companies or things like that let you do is like when you start move into a company and there's only 8 people, it means all of those 8 people are doing 5 or 6 different jobs. So your job description changes a lot. What you get to do during the day changes a lot. You can directly talk to somebody. If you need something to happen, you just talk to, the developer who's sitting right across from you or the CEO who's sitting next to you or whatever. So you get to move really fast and figure out problems really fast. And of course switch around into different modes of thinking daily, and that makes it super interesting to me. Like that's ultimately why I like doing it. As far as an end goal, I don't know. I think it's interesting. I mean, I guess the end goal is to make money and have a 401k or something. I don't know. For me, it's more. I'd rather I like the learning experience of doing all these different things, and ultimately for me, it would be starting my own company to solve like problems that I have. Mechanical problems, programmatic problems, things like that. And I kind of do some of that stuff like on the side to keep myself busy and to keep myself happy. Like I wrote a little, one of the projects I've been working on is a little podcast distribution API, because the thing that sucks about podcasts is it's crappy to publish them. Like you have to have a WordPress blog or you have to have some special software or whatever. And there's got to be an easier way to do it. So like, solving simple problems like that is what I like doing anyway. So working for a small company is an easy way for me to do that during the day too. So
So how did you go from psychology into, I guess, technology? Was it like your hobby that you turned into a job, or what?
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, psychology was super interesting to me, so I studied that in college, and then I realized, oh shit, I probably should have studied computer science. That probably would have been a better idea, but at the time, it was more of my hobby. So it was what I did in my spare time and taught myself how to do things. And then, pretty much realized that I didn't want to go get a PhD in psychology, so that wasn't going to go anywhere. Um, and yeah, just kind of started working, started doing it. That's it. Yeah, it was mainly just a hobby. It's you know,
How do you turn a hobby into a job? I mean, I've obviously done it a bunch of times.
yeah.
My background has nothing to do with being on camera. It has nothing to do with talking. It has nothing to do with actually
Well,
computers.
talking a little bit.
Well, I mean, in law, you learned a little bit about talking, at least the phrasing, not necessarily presenting, because
Yeah.
in law school, it didn't matter how you said something. Okay, you could sound. I mean, in some respects, you have to sound respectful to a professor or a person of authority. But apart
Mm,
from that, you could have some weirdness about you, and it didn't matter. It wasn't like, wow, you talk funny, or you say something strange, or you're talking too quickly. It's more like, is that the right answer? Yes, it is,
right.
and that's at the end of
Yeah.
that. So yeah, so how do you get from a hobby into a job such that how much background did you have? Did you have to explain, like, how did your
Um,
resume have to work to get that first gig? Because it seems like, for I think of a lot of people out there, if they're like me and they were told lawyer or doctor, to have an interest and be like, oh, I've been doing this for years. I had to do stuff on my own just to prove I could do it. To say that's how I figured out how to
mm,
make a hobby into a job. Because unless you do the work, if you don't build the body of work, one, you won't get any better, and two, no one's going to take you seriously, because if you never show actual initiative in doing it, they're not going to believe you. So how did you do it?
yeah. I mean, I guess it's kind of weird. Like, even my first job with the when I was working for the I mean, that wasn't my first job, but real-ish one, I guess. When I was working for the Forest Service, a lot of it was that I was the youngest person in the office. So when something needed to get done, they would on a computer, they would just ask me, right? And that kind of evolved into me developing systems for them to do things. Like I'm getting in there and writing SQL queries against the federal government's financial database and things like that. So that's kind of like the doing work part. And then after that, just I think a lot of early on what I was doing was kind of I was working jobs that weren't necessarily hiring me for my technical ability, but then once I was there, they were like, "Oh crap, no, you should actually be doing this instead." And that kind of, you know, that happens to me at like lots of different jobs. I started at Cambly last week, and I initially went in and was, solving tickets and stuff. And then the, 2 days in, I'm already like writing in their code base and pushing code out. It's just a matter of kind of getting in there, and especially in tech, it's like, yeah, just do it. And if you're working a job where they have needs for things like that, or even simple tasks or something like that, if it's programming or whatever, just like writing it while you're doing nothing, because even jobs where you're working constantly, you still have downtime where you could be writing like some scripts to make your job easier, or whatever, and sometimes a lot of it is just writing those little things, and then people notice them and they go, oh well, he can do X, Y, and Z now, so why don't we have him do that instead of this dumb thing he was working on. But it's also a lot of reaching out to people. Like the way I met Iyaz was by randomly emailing Randall when he was working for CNET. And then we worked on things together, and then he started a company, and then I was talking to him, and I worked for that company. So like sometimes it's just a matter of randomly reaching out to people and being like, "Hey, can I help you with this?" or something like that.
That's how I got into video. Same way, like not just with
Yeah.
Randall, but what I was doing an audio podcast, and then I saw this guy I'd seen on a network, and his name is Will Harris, and he was running this thing called Channel Flip. So on the top right corner was, "Do you make video? Contact us." And at that time, I didn't. So actually, no, we made like 2 or 3 really terrible episodes. Actually, a video. I remember this now. There was, if you look online, I think Daily Motion still might be there. There's a terrible infomercial spoof of the straw, because I always thought, I love infomercials because
Mhm.
I just find them to be a fascinating piece of art form. It's ridiculous. How do you talk about one product for half an hour and continuously try to ramp up the sale as it's going? I find this to be fascinating. I'm like, how?
Well,
This is
that's kind of like podcasting.
I guess I was like, it gets like to a feverish end where you get like a little countdown timer that says you gotta order now because the supplies are limited or whatever it may be. And so I was doing some little crappy video work, and I saw this option to like, oh yeah, send us videos if you want. So I did, and they're like, cool, we want you on. And I watched that stuff back now, or fairly recently, and I'm embarrassed out of my mind at how bad it is, or how quickly I'm talking, how the audio is bad. Technically wise, a technique is not there. Uh, like the raw talent is there. I can see. I'm like, oh, that guy could be good if he'd slowed the hell down.
Right.
Or like it'd be better if they had done, they just waited that comedic beat a little longer, a little bit of jokes, because this was also partially comedy, which is really easy to screw up. Um, and so that's how I got into doing video podcasts. And I liked doing it so much that while I was doing an editor job at this place called Gadgetel, I interviewed this guy named Randall Bennett, and he was this fun guy. He was at CNET. I'm like, okay, I kind of know. I've heard of this guy. And eventually he asked me onto his show a couple of times. It's called Tech V, and then he's like, "You're good. Can you work for me?" And I was like, "What? What do you mean? Like, what do you mean work for you?" He goes, "Well, you'd be on every day. You'd be doing video every day, and what do you want to do with your life?" And I was like, "Well, I want to do video." So okay. He's like, "Well, you do video now?" I'm like, "Well, a little bit once a week or so, and doing another side project." He goes, "Well, is this what you want to do?" So the company I'd worked for was bought by a magazine company called Napco. So I could be part of a larger system. So I get bought from this little small company to this large company. They take us to Philadelphia. They request our presence in Philadelphia. They have all the editors show up because there were 3 or 4 verticals, and we go into this room. We meet these like highfalutin guys. They own like the 11th floor in this beautiful Philadelphia building, and I'm like we have to give a presentation. I wasn't aware we give a presentation. What's our idea? So like I come up with the presentation like on the fly, and then they like my ideas. I'm like, this is great. And so like the next day I quit to go to Randall's thing, and so they're like, wait, what happened? Why did you quit? And I'm like, well, I don't think I can do what you want me to do here because it's just not. Because once it got bigger, I was like, I don't want to do bigger. I like what you're talking about there. The smaller places, in theory, you could actually have a give and take. Then I worked at another small place. That didn't work out so well. So that's how Eric and I know each other. You seem like you're a really chill guy in general. Again, like I've said on this show before, people who are guests on this program are usually friends of mine. So if they've known me for any amount of time, they have to be reasonably relaxed because there's no way on earth any human being who is as wound tight as I am would be hanging out with me because that would be insane. So why are you so chill? Or am I completely wrong about that? Are you like an intense person? Do you get frustrated, obsessed? What do you like when
Uh,
you're not what appears to be nice and like
yeah,
Midwestern like, even though you're not from the Midwest.
Midwestern,
You come off like a
East
Midwestern
Coast.
guy. Not that's not an
uh,
insult. I meant like all American boy. Like, hey, isn't it a nice guy? He's a nice guy.
all right, I'll not take that as an insult.
Sorry to
uh,
insult you, Baltimore.
but no, I mean, I guess I I can be high strung. I don't know. I'm 50-50 on it. I do get frustrated with things a lot. But usually it's things that I'm like forcing myself to get frustrated about, or like things that I'm working on, things like that. But for the most part, I don't think I'm like super like tightly wound. I also just am I can be really passive about things, I guess. Like I have to move from here to San Francisco, and I think a lot of the things when I deal with things like that is I turn them into mechanical things. Like I just turn them into like, well, this is just a problem that needs to be solved, and there's only so many solutions to this problem. So I kind of just go through, figure out what the best one is. Um, I also like to go hiking. I exercise. Try to eat right. Like I actually think that that makes me uh, more chill. As I go. Um, yeah, actually eating right is a huge one. Like I was in San Francisco last week, and of course, like I'm staying in an Airbnb, so there's no way for me to make food, and that like gets to me because I just feel unhealthy as I'm going through it. But yeah,
Yeah, exercise definitely plays a large part in the way my mental health goes.
yeah,
If I don't exercise for a while, if I don't walk, when I'm sick, it's even worse. Like when I'm sick, that's basically I want to destroy everything because like I'm sick, I can't do anything, my body won't let me. I still have responsibilities. I physically am incapable of doing what I should be able to do, and then you're barely eating. At least when I'm sick, and
yeah.
it's a nightmare. So for me, exercise has been a huge part of staying sane because like the amount of like here's something I never understood. I actually never knew before like fairly recently, and I'm 35 now, and this secret just came to me like what the past like couple months. When you're healthy, when you exercise like crazy, like you just feel good like
Oh yeah,
for no freaking reason.
no, it's awesome. I well, that's like I let's see, it's been I don't know almost 9 months or something because I used to smoke, right? And
Hmm.
that's horrible. And then I quit smoking, and I'm like, a month in, I'm like, wait. This is supposed to be how you feel? Because this feels great. Um, like this is it. This is what people are talking about. Okay, got it. Um, but yeah, like but it's the same thing. Yeah, with exercise and things like that. Um, yeah, just even doing simple crap during the day, walking or being outside or whatever. It's awesome. Like yeah,
It's hard to like. I didn't understand that. Like you see all these like I said, I watch a lot of infomercials, and everyone's like, before and after, I look great, I feel great, and I didn't understand that because I'm like, what does that mean? It literally means when you get up in the morning, your back doesn't hurt. You're like, oh,
yeah,
that's nice. When you reach down and get something, you're not afraid of throwing out your back or
yeah.
like pinching a nerve because you sneezed. I mean, like, there's a whole bunch of ridiculous things I've been through over the course of my life, and I'm like, oh, you don't have to feel that way. And I'm like, I
Well,
wonder. Go ahead.
I mean, that's the same with like for me, diet and stuff like that. Um, it's like if you eat the wrong food for lunch, that's why you get tired in the middle of the day. But like if you eat a giant salad and like some chicken or whatever, you're not tired after lunch. Like you don't have to drink coffee after lunch. That was like one of the big ones for me was like, changing diet just a little bit to eat a little bit healthier and then realizing like, oh yeah, 3 p.m. is like perfectly fine. I'm still awake and my brain is still fine. I'm not tired and yawning. Like that was a huge one for me is getting to that point, being like, oh yeah, if you just don't eat crappy food, you feel great. Like even if you don't exercise, it doesn't matter. But yeah, like that was a huge one.
Yeah, and it might sound like we're trivializing being happy, but like if you can do this on a day by day basis, and then like you just wake up and you feel good, and you just stuff doesn't get to you as quickly. At least in my experience, that's what's happened.
Yeah.
People can have they can be inconsiderate or rude, and I'm just like, I bet that guy's having a bad day. Versus going, that guy, I'm gonna kill that person. If I find him again, I'm gonna take a nickel, just push it through his brain. That's what I'm gonna do because I've seen it
Yeah.
once in a movie. But yeah, it's a small thing that if you can do this stuff, if you can exercise, if you can eat right, day by day, days are better, just regularly
Yeah.
better. So
Well,
definitely recommend that.
and so getting into like the helpfulness of like how to do that, like for me is always like a feedback thing, right? So like I have a Fitbit, and for me, like when I was quitting smoking, I used an app that would tell me like this is how many days, this is what your body's doing, things like that. Like just and this is coming from the psychology part, which is just forcing yourself to have an interaction with like the things around you is going to make them better, right? So it's kind of like the simple. There's a simple way to like eat less, right? So if you just want to eat less, a simple way to do that doesn't really take much. It's take a picture of your food before you eat. Just do that every time. You don't even have to look at that picture ever again. But the simple fact that you're putting some barrier up before you do something will make you think, oh, well, maybe next time I shouldn't get the fries or whatever. But making some sort of barrier there where it forces your brain to actually think about it before you do it is kind of a really cool way to do that. And the great thing about the fact that all of us have smartphones and devices everywhere and we can track everything is that, for me, I'm a data driven person. So like being able to track things like is hugely beneficial to me, knowing like how many steps I've taken, whether or not I exercised, and being able to graph it out, things like that. Like I have a Withings things. I don't know how they pronounce it. Scale, one of the Wi-Fi scales that does like body fat and whatever. And it's horribly inaccurate when it comes to body fat measurements, but it's still a data point, and that makes it useful because you can still see a trend on a graph. Like that's my hack for those things. If you like data and stuff like that, I recommend you find some app that works for you. Because honestly, they help, and they also make you happy because you're getting that feedback back that's telling you like, oh, I'm doing the right thing, or oh, like look at how much money I've saved, or et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if do you use anything like that, Iyaz?
That I do. I just actually went to the chat room by accident. I didn't know that was even on the thing there. So sorry about
Sweet.
that, guys. Or you're welcome. I have no idea. For me, for tracking, I don't have any Fitbit or anything like that. I used to use a Misfit Flash for about 3 or 4 months. It was like on sale around Christmas time. It was like $25. I'm like, yeah, I'll try this because I work at CNET, so right next to me are all of the wearables, and like I
Yeah,
know about
yeah.
like the
Aren't
upside
they
and
just
downside.
throwing those things at you constantly? Like,
Well, basically, because I constantly see them, and I'm like, okay, so I know like the good sides about them, the downsides about them, and I can't commit to a Fitbit because like it doesn't work with Apple Health yet, and I want something that
uh,
kind of works with everything. So the Misfit thing worked for a while, and then after a while, it's basically stopped tracking. So I'd be doing like some crazy exercises. I do Insanity, or Insanity Max,
right.
which is a heavy cardio. So there's a lot of
Yep.
running in place. There's a lot of burpees. There's a lot of jumping. There's a lot of push-ups. This thing told me I'd walked 10 steps. And I'm like, wait a minute.
I mean, I have, there's problems with that, with the Fitbit and things like that, but I just don't use it for tracking exercise at that point. Like, cause yeah, it doesn't, it's horrible at tracking exercise. The new one has a heart rate monitor in it though. But yeah, like I totally see what you're saying. Like
It,
none of them are good or perfect or yeah.
it worked for a while, though. It actually did a decent job. And it was, it's a glorified pedometer. That's all I wanted. I wanted
Yeah.
just something that I don't need like a thing that says move. I don't need a thing that buzzes me. I don't really need, I wouldn't mind
Right.
that, I guess. But I didn't need that. I do have the same scale, though. I think it is Withings. Withings
Yeah.
ARIA scale. It does provide data points. I like having that, even though like one day, like how did I gain 7 pounds in a day?
Yeah. It's not super accurate.
It's not. So then the thing is, I just think, okay, day by day, I'll keep weighing myself, and this will be an outlier point.
Yep.
I actually use something called Coach.me, which used to be called Lift, IFT, not the car sharing site, but it's basically a place where you can track any goal. You just type in a goal, and it gives you like a little checkbox. So I have like on mine exercise, weigh in, and no alcohol. These are my goals,
Mhm.
and you can have them public, you can have them private. So I have two of them public, one of them private. Figure out which one is which, and then I just check in. So seeing that little thing says like, oh look, you've checked in for the sixth day in a row. The chains for me
Mhm.
actually are good reinforcement. I also use another site called Joe's Goals. It's not meant to be a shared thing, but I share it with my best friend, Rob Borghese. He was on the show. And we share a login. So if I see him
Oh,
work out, I want to work out. So, and
right.
we have a little log for smack talk. So we'll just talk shit to each other and be like, okay, you didn't work out for 3 days. Are you dead? Like,
That's I do that with the Fitbit app too. Like a couple of my friends are on there, and like the cool thing about the Fitbit app is it has like challenges,
mhm.
so you can do like a weekly challenge with like your friends. And so one of my friends actually lives like out in Portland, so I don't actually see him, but we'll do challenges on the Fitbit like weekly or daily or whatever, and kind of make fun of each other whenever he forgets to put his on after a shower and comes up with zero for the day. But
Yeah, that seems a little bit unfair. I guess it'd make you wear the actual object. Yeah, for tracking though, I don't. The quantified self thing doesn't really appeal to me. The chain calendar, that
yeah,
that theory where you're like just seeing a streak being built is worth it to me. I like seeing that. Okay, I have a streak going.
yeah.
When I was exercising, I basically had a huge health kick last year at the end of the year. I decided I was going to get in shape. My streak, including rest days, because this was on the calendar for Insanity, so I was going to count it. 48 days is as far as I got, and I was like, "That's pretty
That's not
good.
bad. That's pretty good.
It's
Yeah.
pretty good." Like, and the thing is, like, I was being invited to Christmas parties and things. I'm like, I can't. I have to work out at 7 o'clock. Like,
Yeah.
I can't. Like, that's the time my neighbor and I have agreed that I can jump around like a lunatic for an hour or an hour and a half because I live in an apartment building, so there's thumping going on.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And we've actually had talks about this just because like I want to be considerate because if I was dealing with somebody doing this, and by the way, if you're
Yeah.
my upstairs neighbor right now, I don't know what you're doing. It seems like you have like a pogo stick, but uh, I wanted to work something out. So like she knows for like an hour I'm going to be pretty crazy. So
Mm.
I have missed out on a lot of things, and that how do you deal with that? By the way, you've worked from home a lot. Do you have any
Mhm.
fear of missing out because that seems to make people get a little bit crazy?
You know, it does, and the I guess so for the last company for VidPresso when I was working from home, all of us were remote, right? So there isn't really a fear of missing out in that instance, just because like I mean, there's no fear of missing out at the office because there's literally no office, right? Everything that's kind of going on is going on in Slack and things like that. However, I will say, like, I would work remote again, but it was also really fun. Last week when I was in San Francisco working with the new team at Cambly, going into an office because I hadn't done it for a while, and then I was like in an office, and I was like, oh yeah, it's. I remember being able to just look at people and be like, can you fix this now? And so I actually am kind of excited to go like back and work in an office with the team directly. But if the company's like completely remote, you don't really have that fear, I guess. There's because everybody's just talking in like our internal chat, or we're having a hangout, or whatever. Um, but then again, I don't think I really have that fear that much anyway. I don't tend to care what other people are doing that much. Um,
How? How do you
how
do
do
that?
I do that?
I mean, like, look, a lot of
Uh,
people face this. I'm not. This is not
yeah.
a fake thing. You know about this. The idea that people see these very curated Facebook feeds or Twitter feeds or Instagram feeds, and they're like, "Wow, these guys are living it up," and I'm working out, or I'm making a protein shake, or I'm walking a dog. And these are all things I have thought. I'm just like,
Yeah, but I don't you like walking a dog? Like that sounds like a happy thing. That's a happy thing to me at least. So
exactly. The concept for me was like, but I want to do these things. So,
right.
and they
It's
make
like
me not crazy. So that's good. So don't worry about it, because if you're actually doing something that makes you happy, that's not a bad thing.
Right.
But yeah, so back to that. So do you have any advice, since you were you have a psychology degree? You have any advice for people when it comes to that?
When it comes to ignoring other people,
Well,
uh,
I guess the
yeah,
positive way is
you're,
saying that not
yeah.
worry. Yes, ignoring people.
I mean, it's it, we all kind of know that Facebook is bad for us anyway, right? If we're just staring at it constantly, it's not the best idea. And you also have to realize that people are only posting the great things that are happening. There are those few people on your friend feed, I'm sure, who are posting really depressing crap because there's always somebody. But for the most part, everybody's posting happy pictures of things like that, and it's easy. Switch to Twitter, number one. Twitter's a little bit easier to deal with. um, but yeah, I don't know. I there's always a lot of events going on. You're not going to be able to make it to any of them. You'll make it to like 1/10 of 1% of all the events that you're invited to during a year or whatever, or that are happening that are public, and you just got to pick the ones that look interesting and make you happy and ignore the rest, and mostly ignore what people are posting on Facebook, and also just be happy for what people are doing. Like I guess that helps a little bit too. Is just being happy for people and what they're doing and where they are and things like that.
You're talking about
I guess
empathy, like actually being happy for them for doing something.
you can do it without being without actually being happy for them. I guess.
I guess you would have no ill will. I guess that'd be the closest thing.
Yeah, like yeah. Yeah, I guess I just don't care that much. That's really it. I don't know how
That's
to
impressive.
explain to people to do that.
You have some kind of natural apathy that makes you immune to a number of issues people deal with, which is great. So good for you on
Yeah.
that one. What do you do when you're stressed, by the way? I mean, you said you go hiking and things, but like when you're stressed, what exactly do you do to work that out?
Um, Hiking around's always a good one. I don't know. I play video games, which I know you hate.
That's not true.
uh,
I don't hate video games. We'll get into that in a second.
but yeah, like I'll play games. I'll do things like that. I will go. Especially working remote. Getting out of the house was sometimes kind of a big deal. Luckily, they built a brewery a block away from my house, so I will just go and sit at the bar and have a beer and talk to people or bring my laptop and read or something like that. Yeah, I don't have a go-to uh, stress strategy. I probably should, but I don't.
Yeah, for a while, I would like play guitar. Like I played guitar since I was 17, and then when I would
Mm.
get if I was in a mood or something, I'm like, I'm just gonna work it out on this guitar. I'm gonna figure out something, and then before you know it, I'd be sitting there for hours, like trying to make a track, a 4-track track. So like, here's two guitars and a bass and a drum track. I'm like, okay, good. Now I got a song. I don't know what to do with this. So I have like a
Right.
backlog of these things. I'm like, well, this is how I used to work it out. But I'm like, this is also really time consuming. That was one of the things why I actually stayed away from video games, was that when I was playing Xbox, like so the last like game system where I was really actively playing was, I'd say, the Xbox slash the PS1. That's what I was playing quite regularly with my brother. And what we would do is we would have like Halo, and I'm spatially inept. Okay, so there's a map and I can't read it for anything. So my brother's like, just follow me. So I'd waste hours and hours in this game. Eventually, I got better. I'm not totally spatially inept now, but I'm a little bit better. And I was finding with video games in general, I was spending and losing so much time per day just because I wasn't
Mhm.
paying attention to the time. I was having a lot of fun. I'd get frustrated, but I'm also very obsessive. So if I lose, I'm going to figure out how to do it. And this isn't like, oh, I'd look up and strategy guides or something. Like I would just keep playing until I'd figure it out. And that could take a long time or it could be a short while, but I would know that I was losing a lot of time for other things I should be doing. So over the years I kind of pulled it back because I was like I was saying, walking a dog might be a little bit more important than getting an
Yeah.
achievement. Actually exercising, because it'll create a whole bunch of positive things in my brain.
Mhm.
Maybe I should do that. I'm not saying that people who play games don't exercise. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I would be one of those people who would pick a game over an
Yeah, yeah.
exercise, because like it's so much easier for me to be like, well, if I sit here and I use this controller, I have a beer. I'm very happy. But then again, I'm
Yeah,
also going to weigh like 500 pounds, and I'm not going to be happy about
right.
that.
Yeah,
Um,
it's hard figuring out that trade off. I mean, and for me, even the games I play are I don't play anything online or anything like that. Generally, they're story driven games, like top down RPGs. Like I just started Fallout 2 again. I like a game that I can sit there and like pretty much I'm sitting there and reading with random battles in the middle. So yeah, and I like that. I like the like that to me is like the fun escape of games. Like playing online or playing like first person shooters or something just doesn't do it for me because I want to sit there and read a story or something like that I can actually get into some sort of universe for. So
I think I was playing Call of Duty once, and I'm like, this is amazing. This is just, like, and I was like, I can never touch this again.
it's
Um,
built to do that though. That's what's interesting about those games.
it
It's
was
like yeah, the flashing lights and levels
it was
and yeah.
phenomenal. I was just like, this looks amazing. And then I've actually been to E3 once, and I was playing I want to say a Hitman game. I'm like, this is also amazing. I'm like
Yeah.
strategizing, and I'm trying to figure out the scope because it's kind of moving around a little much, and I'm like, I'm never gonna see the outside again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe if I lived in a more boring place, or if I had less dogs, or if I had some kind of crazy metabolism, maybe I'd get into that again. But
Right.
I also like sleeping, just these silly things. What else should I ask you before I kick you out of here? Like,
I I had a quick one. So here's a happiness one for me that I just thought of because there was some anyway. But one of the things that I really like, just like kind of one of those like taking time out of the day things, is I like 2 years, probably longer than 2 years ago, started shaving with like a double edge razor, right? So like a double edge safety razor. And I also have a couple straight razors too. But the interesting thing for me about that was, first of all, it's a cool thing to learn. It's like immensely cheaper, and you get a better shave. But the thing that was interesting for me about it is like, I used to use an electric razor when you would just walk around the house like this or whatever. And the nice thing about using, obviously, I haven't really shaved today, but the nice thing about using like a double edge razor is you have to take a little bit of time and a little bit of care to shave, like in the morning or whatever. So eventually it'll take you about 5 minutes or 6 minutes to do, but it's still kind of nice that, it's one of those times that like during the course of a day, you're actually taking that time back because you're just sitting there doing something, and not rushing around trying to do something else, like which when you're using like a different type of like quick safety razor or something like that, you can pretty much make mistakes constantly and you won't make yourself, bleed out. But anyway, like using the double edge is one of the things that I like. I like it because it gives you that time back during the day. So yeah, that was my quick one.
so kind of like being like doing a ritual that's just for yourself
Exactly.
that requires your concentration. I mean, in some degrees, that's kind of like what you could do with meditation. You could do that
Hmm.
with pretty much anything. I was talking to Mary Jo Foley about this, and she was talking about having routines, and that's actually what can keep some calmness in general as
Yep.
well. But yeah, taking that time out to do something that you want to do in the course of a day is really big. It's funny because Liz got into making bubble tea. You know about bubble tea?
Yeah.
Okay, so like where we live right now, there's no bubble tea places, and
How do you make it? Don't you just buy the beads?
she
Or
it's the beads, and there's a whole series of stuff that happens apparently,
all
but it does
right.
take a lot of time. So like I guess you gotta make the tea, and you gotta cool the tea, and you gotta have
Yeah.
the actual bubble things, which are tapioca, I
Yeah.
guess. So you can tell I've had like one bubble tea my whole life, but she's told me how much she enjoys the entire process of doing that, and I'm like,
Yep.
why? That's a lot of work. But she's like, but yeah, I like it though, and I'm like, okay, I get it. And she like it's super chill when she does it. It's like, okay, she's starting up the tea, and I'm like, this tea smells funny, and then she's like, shut up. No, she just says, shut up. No, but that ritual thing is actually, I think that's been a new trend on these latest episodes, that to do this small thing per day. I've also been trying to figure out what makes me happy on a daily basis and just do that
Mhm.
thing. And I'm like, for
Yeah.
right now, that's exercise. As much as I don't like
Right.
doing it when I'm doing it, I'm always happier after. When I'm like, yay, I did it, even though I feel like I'm dying, but whatever. Anyway, Eric, any more parting words, and or do you want to promote anything before we say goodbye?
Parting words. I don't know. Just ignore other people. You'll be happy. And other than that, what can I promote? I pretty much PWP show on GFQ. You can watch it sometimes on Wednesdays at what is it, 10:30
It's
Eastern?
8:30
No, 8:30.
Eastern, and I don't know what's gonna happen
Yeah.
when you move.
Oh, it's gonna. I think that's totally gonna be fine actually. So,
Okay.
but yeah, that's about it. If you want to check out what I'm working on now, and you're an English tutor, you can go to Cambly, Cambly, and that's you can sign up and teach people English. That's kind of neat. It's pretty neat actually.
Well, Eric, thanks for being on. They can follow you on Twitter, Sandine, where he writes all
Yep.
kinds of things, retweets funny things every now and then. And so, guys, that's going to bring a close to this episode. I've been Iyaz Akhtar. You can follow me on Twitter at Iyaz. You could email this show if you want to, quest@gfqnetwork.com. So if you've got private thing you don't want to tweet out, you don't have to. You can also tweet the show at Quest for Peace TV. It's a tiny little Twitter account, so feel free to tweet, retweet, whatever you want to do with it. It's just kind of there just because I wanted a different outlet for the show because I don't like promoting programs necessarily on my own tweet stream, which probably means I'm doing social wrong, but that's a whole other thing. Anyway, episodes available at gfqnetwork.com. You can watch tons of interviews. You can watch tons of episodes of Podcast Without Pretense, which is nothing like this program at all. It's the opposite of calm. There's a lot of swearing. There's a lot of anger. It's sort of a movie review show at this point. It's really bad Netflix movies, and the three of us, it's Eric, myself, and Jonathan Strickland. Just if the movie's bad enough, we go on a tirade, and if it's just bad enough, we're all very, very depressed. So, so anyway, that's gonna wrap it up for us. Thanks for watching and or listening. We'll see everybody next time.